I've seen this quote I'm going to recite in a minute a number of times across different people's social media and different memes and whatnot. And as this past month with the election passing weeks ago, and this year of 2020, and I would say even in the past decade, this quote that I've seen time and time again is becoming more and more relevant. And the quote is this: hard times create stronger men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am host Brian Bledsoe, and if you want to connect with us on Facebook or Snapchat, it's at TrendChat247, and on Instagram and Twitter at Brian L. Bledsoe. Yeah, so I know, well, it's been 2 weeks now. I've noticed that it's been since our last episode. After our last episode, I went to Nevada for a week, or 5 days, and did some firearm training and just basic firearm training. It wasn't like I was out there, wearing night vision goggles and crawling around in the dirt. But it was all part of a constitutional defense course, and that Patriot Academy was putting together, and Rick Green and the people in Patriot Academy, and also it was done at Front Sight Firearms Training Institute, which it was great there. Matter of fact, we'll have Rick Green on our next episode to talk about that. So we'll get more into that. It was we done the interview a couple of days ago, and it was I'll say it's pretty good, but I always say that. So, but yeah, so we'll have Rick on next week. I would say probably maybe, I guess, 5 or 6 days from when you're hearing this episode, we'll have that interview on. But yeah, so I was out there in a remote area of Nevada, even though it was like an hour away, like an hour north of Las Vegas. But for me, because I'm a truck driver, and that area, it didn't have a truck stop up there, so I had to get a truck, have my truck at the truck stop in Las Vegas, rent a car, and then drive up there every day, which was fine. I mean, I'm a truck driver, so an hour a day, 2 hours total is nothing, because, I drive 7 to 8 hours, if the full 11 hours a day. So, but that was a good time. I really appreciate everyone, like I said, at Patriot Academy and Front Sight for the opportunity to do that course, and I'll talk more about it in the next episode. But as I mentioned in that quote, that it definitely seems I would say right now we're in the time of good times create weak men of that quote, and because of that, I think then the next part of it, the last part, is weak men create hard times, and I feel that is the trajectory we are going, especially if things are, as far as the election go, are going to be confirmed, as far as if Joe Biden is going to be the president. If that's the case, then I think that's the direction we're headed. But it's funny because ever since then, all they've been talking about, as far as Democrats at least, and Joe Biden is talking about, unite. Let's unite and everything. Let's come together for unity, which is, I think it's very ironic because I'm pretty sure if the roles were reversed, they wouldn't be talking about unity with us if they lost. But it's funny. I sure wish we could. Now I wish there was like a way, like a machine or some sort, where you could see how people react if the opposite happens. I just wish there was a way you could find that out. Like you could, like, see with your own two eyes how you would react if the situations were exactly opposite. Would you act the same way or totally hypocritical way? And yeah, but yeah, like I said, if Biden on election night would have been projected to have lost, the call for unity wouldn't be there, because they'll say like, well, we don't want to. I mean, it's something where they've said for years where they want to call all Trump supporters racist, or just Republicans in general racist. And look, that's nothing new. If people were thinking like, oh, they're just doing that because of Trump, because of who he is. No, they've been calling Republicans racist. I don't care who they are. I don't care if you're someone as squeaky clean and nice and as Mitt Romney. Like, they were calling him a racist during 2012. So yeah, that's nothing new. But it also, in the same time they were calling for unity, I didn't see much unity going on when the Million MAGA March that happened a couple of weeks ago in D.C. They didn't seem like they want to unify at that point, because you had incidents of violence against people at that march from the same people, or at least the people who are more aligned with Democrats. Those are the ones that hate Trump and that were dancing in the streets when after election night the next day and all of that. And there wasn't much unity coming from them. I mean, as I said, they only want to unite because things are going their way, at least that's as they think they are. And if things were reversed, they'll be rioting in the streets and screaming obscenities like before. I mean, so to quote unquote unite isn't about coming together and compromise. It is to comply to a socialist direction. The Democrats want to take this country and continue Obama's fundamental transformation that he said back in 2008. So they can spare me with all that talk now, because if in the next couple of weeks and things change, right, and with these lawsuits and legal challenges, audits or recounts or whatever that's going on, if at the end of all of that and it comes out to where Biden loses and President Trump is reelected, that whole talk about unity is going out the window. Like, they're like they never said it before, because everything they're saying right now, that they want Republicans to basically just give up and let's, like I said, quote unquote, unite. If the results change, all of that unity talk is just going to be evaporated. And they'll be right back to rioting and tearing down buildings and burning cars in the street. But anyway, I don't even know how much of a shot that is. I don't know if it's, as far as the lawsuits and everything that is being said to happen in the next couple of weeks, as far as the results of the 2020 election. I can't even say like, oh, well, it's a 20% chance or 50% chance. I honestly don't know, because I'm not a lawyer. And there are a lot of things going on in different states at this point. But either way, what I will say is that all of these lawsuits, allegations, what are we talking about, Dominion, Smartmatic, all of that, all of everything that's surrounding it, we're going to need some evidence in the sense of something that will win a case, and all these things have to be done in a timely manner too, because the clock is ticking as far as getting anything done to affect this particular election. So like I said, the time is ticking away as far as that goes. Now, that being said, if they don't produce enough evidence or don't win cases right now with their evidence and with the case that they're trying to build before, at least as far as anything, and also if they win any of these cases, is it going to change anything? That's another thing too. You can win a case, you can win a number of cases, but if it at the end of the day it doesn't change the result, that still doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it either. Because, and even if, like, say for instance, if none of this pans out to the Trump campaigns how they want to go, I'm pretty sure they would want to win these cases, and then also in the same time be able to, with the verdicts of these cases, change the results as far as with the votes, or if votes are being being misplaced, or votes that weren't counted, or votes that were counted twice, and as far as voter fraud and all that. And let's say they win all that, or win a lot of them, but still doesn't have enough to change the results, it will still be a good thing, because that's another thing I will hope people will continue. Because let's say, for instance, if we get past that point and you can't do anything as far as changing the 2020 election, well, you still need to do it because for future elections. So you can have lawsuits afterwards in the next year or so, especially then you have more time to build a case and be able to have a more fair election in 2022 when the midterms come around and beyond. So all of this that is going on, regardless of what happens, regardless of the results in the 2020 election, I feel it is definitely beneficial in the overall when it comes to elections. So also, speaking of elections, I just want to give a particular shout out to Burgess Owens, because he won in Utah's 4th district, and so he'll be the representative up in Washington for, like I said, for Utah's 4th district. And that's a particular shout out because he is the first person I interviewed for this podcast 3 years ago at CPAC. And it just great. And not only did we have that first interview with him, then we also interviewed him again when he released his book. And so you can find all that, and I don't have the episode numbers for that. I should have looked that up, but I just thought about that. But yeah, so congratulations to not only just Burgess Owens, I just mentioned him in particular, but there are plenty of races that happen, and like I said, it was weeks ago, but it took a while for that race to be confirmed because it was a very close race. So, and that was maybe about a week ago when that was confirmed, but we weren't I think the last time we were on, they were still counting the votes, and it wasn't official. But at this point, I think it is official now. So yeah. So again, congratulations to Burgess Owens. So we have a couple things we're going to continue to talk about. We'll talk about a little bit about I guess redistricting. Redistricting. I didn't know how difficult that was. Redistricting. Yeah. Yeah, in Texas. But so yeah, talk about that. I probably won't be saying that word again. But we'll talk about that. Also a little bit about Mandalorian. So if you don't know, it's a show on Disney Plus. I'll talk about that because there is a couple of things in that not so much about the show, but about one of the characters that is caused a bit of a stir, especially when it comes to just having different political opinions. That's all it really is. It's not even really anything that controversial, but according to Democrats and and leftists and communists and socialists and take your pick, all on that side, that's it tends to be very controversial just to have a different opinion, especially for anyone in Hollywood. So yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute, and also just I guess a little more as far as in general about where I feel like we're going, regardless of if we're talking about as the media want to, as projected for Joe Biden to be the president. Well, even if President Trump wins, I think we're still going this direction. So we'll talk all about that, but let's hear a word from our friends at Young Americans Against Socialism.
Hey guys, this is Morgan Zegers, the founder and CEO of Young Americans Against Socialism. We are a nonprofit organization working to preserve a free, fair, and prosperous America for generations to come, all by equipping our generation with the truth about socialism. If you're interested in watching our educational videos, donating to the cause, joining the Ask Coalition, or becoming a contributor, you can do all of these things at fightsocialism.org. We hope you'll join us in this crucial fight for the future of our great country. Thanks!
This is Dana Lash, and you're listening to Trend Chat.
So you want to keep America great, but you don't know where to go to get some Trump-centered gear? Check out TrumpMug.com. And if you put in the code TRENDCHAT, you get 10% off. So at TrumpMug.com, they have flags, coins, mugs, of course. So go to TrumpMug.com, put in the code TRENDCHAT, get 10% off. Again, TrumpMug.com with the code TRENDCHAT for 10% off.
All right, so I don't know how many times I'm going to be playing that. I don't know. That's something I haven't really contacted Trump Mug about, because, depending on, like I said, what's going on with the election, or I guess, there's still merchandise to be purchased. So I don't know. I have to get in contact with them, see what they're up to, as far as what'll happen. In the event of Joe Biden winning, what it's going to, I may have to change that. It may have to be something a little different. I don't know. Anyway, I just want to, bring up something as far as my thoughts as far as the direction we're going as a nation, and also just kind of, I don't know, maybe hopefully this will maybe clarify in one sense about it. So you have one side that talks about reducing government. And on that is Republicans and furthermore libertarians. When it comes to reducing government, regardless of how especially libertarians, how they feel that Republicans are not reducing enough or also adding to it, at the very least, the message is about reducing government. How good of a job they're doing, especially Republicans in particular, to how good of a job they're doing in reducing government and reducing regulations and all that. At least that is the message from the Republicans. And like I said, especially on the libertarian side. Then you have the other side, which is, your Democrats, socialists, communists, take your pick. And they're all about expanding government. I don't know of any Democrat that talks about reducing government or reducing regulations or something like that. It's always about more government by more social programs, more quote unquote investing, which is just another word for spending taxpayer money, wanting more taxpayer money by raising taxes and all. Just more, anything that they're proposed that's coming from Democrats is about expanding government, regardless of if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, I think that's a bad thing, but it's all about expanding government. And I would go so far as, expanding control, seizing more of our rights and giving it to the government. That's basically what a lot of what they're, regardless of how they make it sound and regardless of how they try to portray it, at the end of the day, it's about expanding government. And when you expand government, you're losing more and more of your freedom, because you don't, the more control you give the government, the less you have as an individual or as just a free people. So I guess kind of framing this in talking about the 2020 election in particular, especially if you're talking about, so one of the issues is talking about whether you have recounts or audits or whatever, is that a lot of what's going on with the election are in the hands of people who are part of government, whether it's state government or local government, what have you. They're all government. And it's not a stretch to figure, the people in government would be more favorable to decide that would not only ensure their job, but possibly expand their job. I mean, look at the numbers in Washington, D.C. for the presidential election. It was over 90% for Joe Biden. I think it was like 92%. And I think if you look at every capital county, is normally the most blue county in the state. Regardless if the county is red or not, it's probably, I would say, if the capital county in that state is red, Republican, it's probably the least red in that whole state. It's probably light pink. But in a lot of cases, even in a red state, the capital county is blue, is Democrat. So like in a red state, if it, like I said, if it's not blue, it's like light red or pink, especially, compared to the rest of the state. And then also you have to account any, if there are any major cities too. Also need to put that in there, because if the capital county is not one of the major cities, or at least one of the top 3 cities, then wherever those major cities in that state are probably they're going to be blue, most likely. So even in Tarrant County, as we found out, and at least that's, the numbers that came out had Tarrant County going for Biden. Tarrant County, Texas, if you don't know. So, and even if, like, say for instance, if you're in a state, let's just go with Georgia, I guess. So you're in a state that turned blue. So Georgia's been red and now it turned blue. You're like, oh, I can't stand this. I'm moving to a red state, something like that. Say, okay, I can't, I don't like it turning blue or whatever that it's, and I'm going to move to, let's say, South Dakota or Texas or whatever. I mean, even if you do that, it wouldn't matter because, for one, Democrats don't want to leave you alone. I don't care where you move. Even if you move out of their state. For one, they want control over the federal government, so that really doesn't matter if you go to another state. Because their goal is to expand control of government, and it kind of goes back to a tweet that I saw from a guy called Zuby. Yeah, I've been posting some of his tweets on my social media because he makes great points, and he tweeted maybe a couple of weeks ago now that it's two sides basically. Forget left or right, Republican, Democrat. It's really just two sides, because even regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, it really kind of falls in this on one way or another. It's the people who want to be left alone and those who refuse to leave other people alone. And that's pretty much where we're at this point. It's basically come down to those two. You can put whatever name behind it, but you can look at whatever policies that they're advocating for. It's really going one or the other way. So now, one thing I mentioned is now, so in Texas, even though I mentioned that Tarrant County seemingly went to Joe Biden, which, I live in Tarrant County, and to see that happen it's not surprising, but it's disappointing. It's actually one reason why I moved to Tarrant County, because Dallas County has been blue for years, and I lived in Dallas County for about 6 months, and and the only reason it was 6 months because it would have been shorter than that. But as soon as I had the opportunity to move back to Tarrant County, I moved back to Tarrant County, because Dallas County is, it is. I would say it's not even light blue at this point. I think it's heavily Democratic right now. And again, like I said, because Dallas is obviously is a major city, and like most major cities, it was a Democrat stronghold as far as the county goes. Now, a lot of times whenever you would mention about major cities, you will be able to say, except for Fort Worth as a major city, but it was in a red county. Now that's changed. But again, it's not really surprising because Fort Worth is a major city, so the fact that it's been red all this time is kind of surprising. But even that has flipped now. But anyway, all that being said, overall, especially in the Texas state house, that Republicans have the majority in the house, and so with that, and because it's being 2020, the year of the census, so it was a particularly important election because whoever was in control of the legislature in Texas would be in control of redistricting for the next 10 years. And So that being said, so Republicans have the majority, so they're going to be in charge. And I know that was one thing, especially Democrats, because they pumped a lot of money trying to win races to get over the top to win the majority, and to have that. But it didn't happen. So now, obviously, because Democrats didn't win, they were like, "Oh, Republicans are going to rig, going to gerrymander." That's basically what they're going to be saying, that they're going to gerrymander. They're going to configure the district so it, that it, they'll configure the district to where it would have that Republicans will continue to win in their district, and so they'll draw the line that kind of way. Which, if Democrats would have won, they would have done the exact same thing. So, for them crying about that, look, if they, Democrats, you lost, Republicans win, and this is what can happen if you win. This kind of goes back to, elections have consequences. And the fact that if I won, then I'm going to, because if I have the authority to draw the lines because I won the race, okay. Now look, personally, I would love to have it to all be like blocks, like square blocks across the whole state, just square blocks, and however many per district you would put in that block, just a square across the whole state. Just do it that way. That's what I would want. But I know both sides would not be for that. Neither side will want that, because they both want that power when they're in control. But so that's not going to happen. But that's what I would want, because I think that would be a fairer way of doing it. Just put everything in blocks, like a square 2x2. Just a square block of every place, and at the borders of it, maybe you have to configure it a different way, but at the most, it'll be all blocks. But like I said, neither side will want to do that, because Republicans will want their opportunity to draw the lines, and Democrats would like to do the same. So with that, there are going to be a lot of moving around. I'm guessing with the influx of people in the past, especially in the past 10 years, that in the U.S. House, that they're going to gain a couple of seats, and some states are probably going to lose. I'm guessing California is going to lose a couple of seats, and Texas is going to gain a couple, and maybe New York, I don't know, but we'll all find it out in due time. That's not anywhere close to, I think, in the next year or so. We won't find that out till then. So anyway, the last thing I guess we'll talk about after our word from expressions is I'm going to talk a little about the Mandalorian. And Gina Carano. So I'll talk about that a little bit after a word from expressions.
This is Lacey Williams, the founder and president of Expressions Magazine, letting you know that you can order our quarterly magazine and support female conservatives by visiting express-conservatism.com, or you can follow us on social media. On Instagram with the username of expressions_conservemag, or on Twitter with the handle of @express_conserve. Get your copy today.
Hey everybody, it is Chad Prather, host of the Chad Prather Show. You are listening to Trend Chat with my man, Brian Bledsoe. Come on with it. 1, 2, 3.
Trend Chat is proud to be a part of the hashtag Life Tribe or Culture of Life as they seek to celebrate life through the world of fashion. Go to COL1972.com and get 10% off your purchase when you enter the code Trend Chat.
All right, so I don't know how many people who are listening to this podcast have watched the show The Mandalorian. Anyone that knows that has listened to, I guess, a couple of episodes would know that I am, I guess, a Star Wars fan. We did a couple of episodes on Star Wars and all of that. And I was planning to go to this big Star Wars convention, which is called Star Wars Celebration this year, but obviously it was canceled because of COVID. And they delayed it 2 years, so it's been pushed to 2022, which at this point actually seems like was a good idea, because we're almost at 2021 and we're still, got empty arenas, no movies going on. One thing, although we're not getting any movies except for Wonder Woman 1984, which is still slated to come out on Christmas Day in theaters. It also is going to be streamed on HBO Max, but it will be shown in theaters. So I'm looking forward to going to the theater and watch that on Christmas Day, wherever I'm at. Maybe I'll be at my parents' home in Alabama or something like that during that time. But yeah. But other than that, everything else is, movies, the theaters have been closed, and the ones that are open are, don't have barely anyone in them. So with all that going on, we still have TV projects that are moving along, because for one, there's still production that's going on. There, shows are being are getting filmed and all that, and then production having all the precautions as far as COVID and testing and all that. So they're moving forward as far as film and TV shows, and particularly movies are moving forward as well. But when you're going to see them, at least on a big screen, is who knows. So in saying all that, The Mandalorian was, matter of fact, the season that is on Disney Plus right now was already done before COVID. So they'd done everything they need to do, and this, COVID didn't affect it at all. And I'm really liking The Mandalorian. It's and with Baby Yoda and everything, and it's not so much about about the show, even though, like I said, I enjoy it. I'm waiting every Friday to watch it, to download it. And but yeah, it's not so much about the show. It's about one of the characters, who is played by Gina Carano. In The Mandalorian, she is Cara Dune, and I think in the first season, I thought she was a great character. I liked her in this show, but I also liked her in previous films as well. I remember a movie she played maybe 10 years ago. It was called Haywire. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh, and I really liked that movie with her in it. And I think she was like in one of the Fast and Furious movies. But anyway, she was a MMA fighter. So, and I wasn't really watching much MMA at that time, but I did have seen some clips of her. So she legit know how to fight. And but yeah, and so I liked her character in the first season, and since the first season ended, going into this season right now that's currently going on, she has caused a bit of a stir. Like I said earlier, it shouldn't be that much of a controversy, but it is, because Democrats, leftists, like I said, they just can't tolerate any different opinion especially from someone from Hollywood. And so Gina Carano has tweeted out mainly retweeted some things. So she I think she tweeted something about voter fraud, or just vote, or something about let's fix our fix this problem that we have and clean up our elections, and have ID and stuff like that, just basically saying, let's let's clean up the system. That's all she was saying. But given the fact that saying that, and for them, for Joe Biden won, so why are you talking about fixing, trying to clean up the system and fix something that in their eyes nothing is broken, but especially because their guy won. Again, if the tables will turn, if she would have said this and Trump would have won, they were like, yeah, you're right. But because their guy won, and so the system is all great now. And so by saying that, just that, and then she's also has retweeted some other things from conservatives or something like that. And also she just hasn't backed down yet. Now, she's been doing this for a couple of months, which is remarkable in the sense of, because most times when a celebrity posts anything quote unquote controversial, which in their eyes anything controversial is conservative. That's all it means. It's not really controversial. But if anybody in Hollywood posts anything that is remotely conservative or something that is not in lockstep for whatever Democrat, leftist, communist, socialist narrative that is out there, if anything contrary to that, it's controversial and they need to be counseled, and they don't need, they should be destroyed and not have to be fired from their job and all of that. Now, all these actors with their political opinions, and if their opinion is, like I said, if it's to the left, anything that is support of Democrats or anything in support of liberals and progressives and socialists and all that, that's fine. But if she says something, anything outside of that, then, like I said, they can't stand her and she needs to be canceled. And I would just say if anyone of those people who are listening to this, welcome to our world, because that's what we put up with every day with Hollywood. A lot of us watch these shows and movies with all the actors in these shows that are just screaming liberals, like very outspoken progressives and socialists out there. But I could appreciate their craft, appreciate what they do on screen, and totally disagree with their political opinion. But like I said, she hasn't backed down, because she hasn't said, she hasn't apologized or whatever like that, which a lot of them do. Like I said, whenever a celebrity say anything outside of the progressive socialist Democrat narrative, anything outside of that, they'll get called controversial. Then they'll get a whole bunch of nasty tweets on social media for like 24 hours, and then like the next day he or she will come out and apologize for saying something. They'll say something like, for people who are offended, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be offensive or whatever like that, and they'll just grovel basically so they don't get any more mean messages. I mean, it's, let's just stay in Star Wars right quick. So Mark Hamill, who plays, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, he is a insufferable, outspoken liberal on Twitter, on social media in general, whatever. Like he is out there, and like I said, he's very well, known for being how progressive and liberal he is. All that being said, I still like him as Luke Skywalker. Like, there's been rumors right now as far as him being in the Mandalorian somewhere down the road, maybe in this season or next season. And if he shows up, I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome to see Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian. I can't stand his political opinions. I think his opinions are trash. when it comes to politics. But I like him as Luke Skywalker. I could watch all the old Star Wars movies just fine. I mean, like I said, as a conservative, pretty much all these actors and actresses are liberals. They're just some are more outspoken than others. Like I said, I could appreciate their work and totally disagree with their political opinions. But apparently, which is not the case, this what I'm saying right now is nothing new. But it's just another case when it comes to talking about Gina Carano, where the Democrats, leftists, communists, socialists, whatever. I always try to put them all in the ghetto because they're pretty much all the same. But yeah, they can't deal with that. So anyway, I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. And I know for me, I was on the road mainly because, I took so much time off with, being in Nevada. So I had to get back on the road. Gotta make that money, So yeah, I was on the road, and it's one thing about driving on a holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas, where it just smooth sailing out there. There ain't barely anybody on the road, especially on like Christmas morning. And no traffic out there. Then again, I don't think I'll ever encounter less traffic than I did in those 2 weeks earlier this year, with the shutdown. That right there was spooky. With how little traffic was out there at that time. It's never been like that. Even on a Christmas morning, there were still cars here and there. But during that shutdown, I remember driving through Chicago. I think I mentioned this before on here. But I drove through Chicago on rush hour. And it was just us meaning just truck drivers. And Uber going by. That's all it was on the road. And just went through Chicago with no stops, no traffic in Chicago, which is unheard of. Anyone that lives in Chicago in particular, or just any, like in New York or LA. But I would just remember I was in Chicago at that time. I also went to Houston in that 2 week time. And it was the same way. Went through there during rush hour, no traffic. Just flew right by. Anyway, but yeah, so that's what I was doing on Thanksgiving. So, but again, like I said, I hope y'all all had a happy Thanksgiving. And I know, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, we'll have Rick Green on our next episode. We'll talk about constitutional defense course and Patriot Academy and some other things as well. So appreciate everyone listening. Go to trendchat247.com, available on Google Play, all most popular podcast outlets. So, and I just noticed right now I didn't shout out the locations. Well, guess we'll have to do it next episode. So anyway, until next time, we'll chat with you later.